Tools and Means. Written and read by John Miro. Episode 11. Tom staggered down cross streets toward his rental car, grateful when even the late-night tourists disappeared. He made it to the car without anyone offering an ambulance or whispering into their cell phones for the police. Finally, the drab gray mid-size sedan was in sight. Trembling fingers drew the keys from his pocket, only to drop them to the road. He gasped with bone-deep exhaustion and leaned against the side of the rental, staring at the gleaming keys. An alien will blew through him. The aches in his muscles eased, his body relaxed, and so did Tom's guard. The rider had soothed his pains, and in that second tried for control again. Tom's world went black again. The smells from a nearby alley disappeared. The touch of his sweat-soaked shirt faded to nothing. The only feeling left was a wall of water covering him, surging against him. A powerful ancient will surrounded his thoughts and drowned his rage, until only pain and memory remained. Tom could not think how to stop the blackness, could not remember why he wanted to. His family was gone. He'd done nothing to stop it, and there was no one to help him now. Why fight? A pinprick of light pierced the dark. Allie's smiling face, bright as the moon, disrupting the cloud of nothingness strangling him. She smiled and gently kissed his cheek, saving him. She would always save him. Tom's eyes flung open to be blinded by the twin high beams racing towards him. His ears hurt from the horn almost on top of him as he leaped into the air and rolled onto the trunk of his rental, just as a blue cube van tore past. As its horn led up, the rider's scream of hatred rose up in his mind. Tom ignored it and laughed. He held his hands before his eyes and wiggled his fingers. "Sorry. Try again," he gasped, fighting pain in his gut from the spasms of laughter. "I still got all my fingers and toes." The laughing fit continued even after he slid off the trunk. He leaned against the bumper and gasped for breath between waves of the belly laugh. Finally, he wiped his eyes and imagined Bob's face. Coming when conjured, Tom saw it floating in his mind's eye, blue flames pouring from its sockets, mouth wide in its alien scream. Then he conjured a vision of duct tape, felt his nails tug a corner free, reached into his mind's eye, and slapped a fat piece of tape over that mouth. The scream in his mind disappeared. Tom sensed something ripple out of Rider Bob. Fear? Maybe. Tom closed his eyes and went inside. He pushed at the blackness sitting over his thoughts. The blackness pulled away. He registered its disgust and hatred. "You're not my favorite, whatever you are either," Tom chuckled. "Go ahead and stay shut up. I like that just fine." Still laughing, he tapped his pockets, felt for his keys. Where did I put those there. He saw them gleaming in the street, where the rider had walked him to die. "Never met anybody that could stand up to you before, huh?" Silence from the other. He savored the rider's muted rage, and then he wondered, "What else can I take from you?" He urged his aching body back towards the keys on the ground, when a strange impulse grabbed him. He remembered flying through the air, and that feeling of pressure from all sides as he hung there halfway up the wall. He reached a hand out towards the keys and pulled at them with his mind. With a ringing sound, they leaped into his hand. The insides of Tom's head began to ache from the rider's mental assault. Tom thought of the old moving blanket that his dad had kept under the stairs, remembered how the heavy old thing had grown damp and musty. Then he imagined tossing it over Rider Bob's head. The fear and the pain in his head almost completely disappeared, and Tom sighed with relief. That was better. He jabbed the unlock button on the key fob, opened the door, and collapsed into his seat, fighting off a giddy new wave of laughter. Trembling hands got the seatbelt across his body and clicked home. The trembling in his hands got worse when he lay them at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Rider Bob leaned out of the shadows in the back seat, the moldy blanket still around his shoulders. His eyes poured licking blue flame. "We need to talk." "No," Tom said, "we don't." Rider Bob reached for his mouth and tore the duct tape free. "You got a long ride home ahead of you, boy, and I can talk all night." "All right, Bob. Let's talk about the woman, Claire. What was the goal there? I heard her promise the meat puppet senator something about reducing violent crime. What's your game?" Rider Bob smiled enigmatically. "You'll learn it all after I make you my meat puppet, Tommy boy." "No, I don't think so," Tom said. He closed his eyes and dug for the information. Violent hosts. The perfect camouflage to strike from. Sabotage infrastructure. Spread fear. Build an army hidden in plain sight to bring the animals of this world low, to pull the fangs of the technology that made them a threat. Bob grunted, and the thoughts fell from Tom's mental grasp. The flow of information reversed. An old memory flooded Tom's mind. Pain came with it. The face of his mother, white, after her blood had been drained from her. The pain, where the ropes rubbed him raw as he lay on his side and stared at her. Tom's right eyelid ticked as Bob's taunts stoked his anger. But no, he wouldn't let Rider Bob use it against him. "Nuh-uh, that's mine." The assault dimmed, then began anew with other memories. The rider's memories. Fire, pain, cold, loneliness, years with no thoughts but its own in the black of space. Tom understood. The rider's hate didn't work. Its terror attacks didn't work. Now it tried lashing out against Tom with its own pain. The isolation, the torment of a voiceless scream lasting for unchanging centuries, before a blue-green world appeared, swelled large, and swallowed it. Light and heat and then blackness when it plummeted into a field of green and cratered into the black earth below. Then only a few years more before another mind grazed its own. A like mind in origin, hate, and need to hurt, ravage, unbalance, destroy. A fellow traveler, brother, co-conspirator. Tom was frozen in place, but not by the rider's will. His mind hurt as it stretched with the enormity of the creature's existence. It had spent tortured centuries trapped inside that glowing blue ball before it reached his world. His mind stretched wider than any human knew how to. Stretched, but did not snap. Tom Brogan knew pain and loss, like few men did. Suddenly, completely, he accepted his new tormentor. "I've got a new passenger. It is what it is." "Talk all you want," he said, savoring the clarity that came with the understanding. "But you're not in charge. From now on, leave the driving to me." Animal snarling rage was back on the phantom's face, and the blue flames in its eyes guttered wildly. It lashed out, hurtled images of other men into Tom's head, other men possessed by its kind, men cutting through the muscle and organs of prisoners just to appreciate the suffering. Like good music, Tom resisted, instinctively retaliating with images of his balancing acts, all of them mirrors of the depravity his victims had done unto others. Acid burns, drownings, filleting flesh, and worse. Tom let it have it all. It snarled and cursed Tom with new images, these ones truly alien. Creatures with leather skin and glowing blood, raking talons over each other, disemboweling, decapitating. Other beings, puffed full of gas, floating and flying in other colored skies, above fields of dead creatures just like it. Everything within its six-eyed gaze was still and rotting. It was the rider way. watching and savoring their victims suffering from behind different eyes each time, but still glowing with blue fire. Tom took it all in and felt only fascination. So many lives. You've lived inside so many others, Tom murmured. You destroyed other worlds before this one. He followed those thoughts, riding them like a carrier wave and absorbing other images, even too bizarre for him to immediately process, but absorb them he did. He was learning his enemy. He could do his homework later, at his own pace, now that he knew. His enemy shrieked and reversed the connection again, hammering Tom with another violent tableau. This time, a dark, serpentine shape, as alien as the rider's other forms, as grotesque as any of its former hosts, but undulating in the shadows. Hissing, slavering, the demon shape loomed above the shivering form of a human child. A boy, trapped and silent in his mindless fear. A mobile of brightly painted wooden cars, trains, and planes was pushed by a misshapen black head. The intruder's maw opened wide, revealing row after row of glassy black teeth. The Byzantine mass opened, clacking fangs reached for the boy's head, and, "Shit, that's my room," Tom said with awe. He'd lost this memory. The monster was a child's fever dream version of H.R. Geiger's Alien. That was a nice try, Tom decided, but the memory writer Bob had unlocked was a good one. It didn't inspire terror as surely had been the plan. No. In his mind's eye, Tom saw his mother, full of life again, full of love and kindness, walk through his childhood nightmare, breaking it into wisps of smoke and collecting him in her arms. She hummed something old. He didn't remember the words, but the boy that Tom was and the man that had survived his mother were both soothed by the balms of her love and song. He turned to face front again, sighing with pleasure at the newly recovered memory. After a moment, he clapped. "That was a nice one, Bob. Thank you for that. But I told you, you can leave the driving to me." "We'll see, animal," snarled the thing inside Bob. Tom felt things ease, felt himself become the cool, collected version of himself again. "So what are you, energy? A memory? Or are you really alive?" he asked. "How long have you been here?" Burning, empty sockets stared through him in the rearview mirror. Familiar, thin lips pressed together and smiled silently with malevolence. "How many people have you taken?" Tom continued, his voice light, inquisitive, dispassionate, like an exterminator might use on a cockroach. "How many lives have you ruined?" The lips that used to be Bob's twisted into a snarl. "You'll learn that when we've broken you." Tom nodded, his face blank again. It was his game face. He was the business side of himself again, the balancing self. The fire of his need was stoked, but locked up tight. "No," he said softly, a trace of a smile in his voice. "You've got that backwards. Look deep, Ryder. See why Bob was rattling around in my head before you showed up." He threw an arm over the passenger seat and leaned back. "Understand. You are the one trapped here, not me." Was it his imagination, or did the blue flame dim? The snarl faded for sure, Tom knew, and he savored the look of doubt that replaced the former malice. "I owe Bob, as much as I hate him," Tom said, as he settled in his seat and started the car. "He led me to my life's work." He met Ryder Bob's gaze again in the rear view. "That work, it's almost done. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life once I finished balancing the scales for Eldon, and there's only one name left in that file." Tom put the car in gear and smiled. He felt his lips part and let the joy play on his face. He felt lighter than he had in years. He looked past the creature in the rear view. Nothing but empty road. He loved early morning driving. "What's next is, I find all of your friends and put right whatever it is you've done. Congratulations, Ryder. You're my new life's work." The flames shrank to almost nothing on the phantom's face. Tom felt its fear now, plain as the day that was coming. He liked Ryder Bob feeling afraid. "Buckle up," he whispered, and pulled onto the road, heading out of Miami while the sun rose behind them. "We're in for a ride." You have been listening to Tools and Means. Title music, Infiltrate This, by Atlas Plug, used with permission. For show notes, more information, and other fiction by me, John Miro, please visit servingworlds.com. Thank you for listening.